When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. One of my favorite Wayne Dyer quotes. It's so important to address this. It's so true. When we're experiencing any type of low mood or not achieving our goals as we would like, it can be helpful to take a look at how you are perceiving the situation. For example, if you're experiencing low mood, say you weren't invited to a party and are feeling left out, you might have thoughts such as, I don't have any friends, nobody likes me, and that's only going to contribute to feeling worse. On the other hand, you might think, oh, well, I can't be invited to everything, and I was invited to this great party last year. I had this wonderful conversation with a friend yesterday, and remind yourself of the connections that you do have. Two different ways to look at the same situation. Or in your professional life, you might be thinking about asking for a raise and have negative thoughts such as, oh, what am I even thinking? I'm not going to get that raise. What am I thinking? Or you might think, it might be taking longer than I'd like, but I'm ahead of where I was last year, and I know I'm going to be even further next year and in the months to come. Same thing, two different ways to look at the same situation. And it's so important to keep our thoughts positive and in line with our ultimate goals. They do help us reach our goals and improve the way that we are feeling. And this is so important because part of the human condition is to think negatively. The National Science Foundation did a study in 2005, and they found that about 80% of our thoughts during the day are negative for the average person, and about 95% are the same as the day before. So we're constantly caught up in these negative thinking loops that tend to spiral out of control when we don't pay attention to them. And there's two psychological phenomenon that play a role in this happening. And one is called negativity bias, and the other is confirmation bias. So with negativity bias, that is how we tend to think negatively and perceive negativity and danger and threats even when they're not there. This is a type of thinking that hundreds of years ago kept us safe and alive. The problem is we don't need that kind of negativity anymore. We don't need to perceive danger and threat where it isn't, but that's one way that the brain has not evolved to help us be less negative. We don't need it for our survival anymore. And the other phenomenon is confirmation bias. And confirmation bias is when we tend to look for evidence in the world to prove an already existing belief to be true, even when that belief doesn't serve us, and even when it's harming us reaching toward our goals, and even when it's not true. So people who feel good and who are achieving their goals tend to be really good with dealing with confirmation bias and negativity bias. For some people, it comes naturally. For other people, it's conscious effort. But for most people, in one way or another, it's dealt with on a daily basis. So how do we change? What can we do about this? In my experience, the easiest way and feels good is gratitude. It does not change the world, but it changes the way you see the world. And simply by turning your thoughts to gratitude when you have a thought that is not serving you. A simple way to start is when a negative thought pops up, think about what you are grateful for. And this does not mean ignoring emotional pain. I'm not talking about toxic positivity here. I believe that there's no such thing as a negative emotion. They might be uncomfortable, they might be painful, but you can use that discomfort, that pain, as a signal to trigger you to look for something positive after you have allowed yourself to feel that pain. And when we call it negative, it makes us not want to feel it. So it's important to understand that you need to feel your pain. You cannot heal what you don't feel. But then turning the thoughts to gratitude is one way to move forward so you don't get stuck there. And so you do feel better. So you are in an elevated mood, an elevated energy state to feel better and achieve your goals. So as an example, if I'm thinking about my speaking engagements, and let's say I don't get one that I had my hopes on and really wanted, instead of wallowing in my sorrow about that, I can think about the gratefulness and how wonderful I felt at my last speaking engagement. And because it happened, I trust that there are more to come. That's one simple way to turn something that might be painful in, and use gratitude to think about what you're grateful for. It helps you feel better in the moment. And then that elevated mood and elevated energy is what will actually help me with my next email searching for another opportunity. Whereas if I allowed myself to focus on that negativity, that can spiral out of control where I might not even act. So it's so important to keep our thoughts positive. They affect the actions that we take, they affect our mood. So once again, as the very wise Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And another similar quote of his, change your thoughts and you change your world. So today, think about one simple thing that you can use a situation with gratitude. And one way, a simple way, is when the next negative thought pops up for you, simply think about one thing that you are grateful for.